the first Beatle to grace the place was Ringo.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, it's Ringo, so I was, he was my favorite Beatle. Oops, growing up. Oops. Yeah, I know.
He's a lovable guy.
I know, and it was not the right thing for me to say when John asked me that question. Who was my favorite Beatle? That was not the good thing to say.
My first guest is Ruth McCartney. She's an internet, digital, and new media entrepreneur. She's the CEO of McCartneyMultimedia, co-founder of fan management software company iFanz, and president of ConnectCode.mobi. She's also the stepsister of Paul McCartney and Mike McGear. My second guest is Miss May Peng. In 1973, she accompanied John Lennon to Los Angeles to promote Mind Games, and thus began an 18-month relationship, which John affectionately and publicly referred to as his lost weekend. So my first question is, how did you two meet one another? Or do you remember the first time you met?
God, I don't remember actually, because when you're part of that family, you just get embraced into the family. So
Sure.
all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, Ruth, Angie, and then there's Mike, and then there's Paul, and so everybody gets mixed into it. I mean, I don't even remember the first time I met Louise Harrison, or any of those, but I do remember when I met the guys, but not the actual, the other Beatles like George and Ringo and whatever, but not the family, the extended family.
Likewise, I mean, I don't know. Gosh, 74, I would have been 14. So
later on, it's just later on.
Yeah.
Because Cynthia was around, and she was a close friend of both of us, obviously. Yeah. And I knew Patty, I knew Maureen. So it's, when you're part of the family, you just get thrown in there. When did we meet? I don't know, but you could ask me when I met the guys, but not.
So I knew a little. I've done a little bit of research here, and my most important question will be to you, Ruth, and we can get it out of the way now. Did Paul actually touch the orange in the lunchbox or not? You never say.
You have done your research.
I did my research.
Well, yeah, when I went to school growing up, I was born in 1960, and my mom Angie married Jim McCartney, my dad, who would have been 119 in July. Wow. He's born the same day as Ringo, so he had a birthday a little bit ago. And he and my mum got married, and he adopted me, and I became McCartney. So I went to the local village school, of course, in Heswell, in the Wirral. And kids older than me used to try and break into my lunchbox and steal my cheese sandwiches and say, oh my God, she's got an orange in his. Paul, touch this orange. Just ridiculous stuff. So Paul had probably touched the orange or put the banana in the lunchbox, but who knows? It's just kids are crazy. And on my first day at school, actually, the headmaster called all the kids in about an hour before I got there. I was told to come late, or my mum was told to bring me late. And he said, now, what we don't want you to do is pay special attention to this kid. You're not to pull her hair. You're not to steal the name tags out of her clothes. You're not to steal her books with their names. He basically gave them a list of what happened to me for the next 5 years.
English kids are so proper. They'd listen, right?
You tell a bunch of 8 to 12-year-olds what they're not supposed to do to the new student that's coming in an hour. Guess what happens?
Yeah.
So, it knocked the edges off me. I'm all right.
Oh, Look at you now.
So I was an art dealer. I do a lot of memorabilia now, but I was an art dealer for years. And so your Andy Warhol connection, May, is neat. You did meet him at one point?
Oh, I've met him on and off several times throughout in New York. When you're part of the scene, or you go to those places, you meet all. It was like a clique.
Yeah.
It's Andy's place. Or this person. So it first time is more exciting, and then afterwards it's Andy. It's okay.
Yeah.
Factory. Oh, all
He's
right.
Such a neat guy. I mean, I would imagine. And you're pre-Basquiat, though. Did you meet Basquiat in later years?
Oh, yes. Believe it or not, I did not realize I met Basquiat. Here's going to be a good one.
All
So
right.
there's
And
a
Keith
good
Haring
friend of
too,
mine.
just so I don't forget, because Keith Haring is like.
I did meet Keith Haring, not knowing that it was Keith Haring in LA,
Okay.
but I was, and somebody made fun of his name. And I was like this, sitting at the table going, Keith Haring, but he was going, is it a herring? And, and I'm like, oh no, please. This is too embarrassing.
Leave him alone.
Yeah, exactly. A friend of mine who I've known for eons, he was a fan of John's, and he found a way to get to our apartment in New York. Well, anyway, he was a 14-year-old kid back then. He went to high school, he from Brooklyn.
Sure.
And he would say to me, this kid, he brought him over to the apartment. And I said, did I ever meet him? He says, I think you have, because he used to bring lots of people and he'd come over. But at that point, he was over at his friend's house, my friend's house, Mario. And he said to Mario, you need to spruce up your place a little bit. I want to paint your door. So he goes, okay, I'm going to paint the door. A little while later, I don't know how much later, but Mario's father comes in. He goes, I don't like this door. And he painted over it. Then, of course, one of his good friends was Basquiat.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. That was the whole thing. He was a schoolmate of his.
Wow.
Oh my God. That's like painting over. That's like cleaning. I'm going to clean up this wall because it's got some stupid girl holding a balloon. What's it, Banksy? Yeah,
it's like the Banksy stuff now. So, where's the door? Is it still there? Because we could probably do some extra.
No, I know. I thought no, it's gone. It's gone.
Bummer.
Yeah, when he told me that, I was like, oh, I choked. So
there's an artist named Raymond Pettibone. He did all the Black Flag album covers, the Foo Fighters, Hard, Sonic Youth, The Two People in the Car. I'm a fan. And so I think he was down a bit on money. I don't know, but he painted a rooster, like in a little carnival thing at Chuck E. Cheese's. That's a pizza place for children.
Yes, so I know that place. Yes.
I took a ride with my friend to see if they still had the Pettibone rooster inside of the Chuck E. Cheese. And you should have seen the looks on these people's faces, because you're looking for what? You used to have a rooster and it was painted by a guy, and these kids they're kids working there. And then the looks on their faces of, what are you talking about?
Was it still there?
No, it was gone. They don't have anything like that now. It's all arcade machines.
Well, it's like my friend's door, the Basquiat, I'm sure they go, oh, all right, next, let's throw this garbage right out. It's the same.
Funnily enough, I didn't understand. There's a lot of artists like this, but I didn't understand his art until I saw it in person. And then when I saw it in person, I went, oh, wow. Jackson Pollock is an oh, wow.
Here's another where I used to live.
Yeah.
Up in Rockland County, which is about 40 miles northwest of the city. I met this musician, Jon Pousette-Dart. Well, little did I know, I found out about his father. I think his father's name is Richard. Well, he's an artist. And Jackson Pollock was emulating him.
Oh, cool.
And here's the best one. So I went over to John's house, and his family and all these original paintings, because his father is gone, but all his stuff is just laying about. And the last year, months before President Obama was leaving, they were allowed to, for one of the rooms in the White House, they pick out for their art, what they can put into that room. It's a permanent art room. Oh. They chose one of his art pieces.
Oh, fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I was so excited for my girlfriend who's married to John, and she says, oh my God, we just got a piece that's just went into that, into the White House. It's a permanent art room, wherever that room is. Yeah.
I actually am one of the in development McCartney Studios projects I'm working on is called Art and the Beatles, because they're all very arty-farty. And in fact, the one and only painting that they ever created together was in a hotel room in Tokyo. And there was some delay and they couldn't, I don't know, visas were not right or whatever. And Mal Evans, the roadie, went out and got them a big canvas and a bunch of paints and what have you. And there are a few surviving photographs, and it still belongs, as we understand it, to the granddaughter of the then Beatles Japanese fan club. It's the one and only piece they've created together. Yeah.
So they all drew on it. It's not just signed. It's actual.
Oh no, it's an oil painting. They were locked in a hotel room for 2 days, and there's pictures of 4 of them sitting around opposite sides of the table just painting.
How neat. I have to check that out. That's something cool.
So
That's something to look into.
I'm scripting a documentary about it. If I can just find the damn thing, that would be great.
My one is I have the original handwritten sheet music to Pink Floyd, The Wall. So, yeah, it's going to go on that museum tour. It's going to go on that Vogue, the Vogue Museum in LA. And inside, I didn't know I had it. I talked about it on another one here with a journalist. And it's all of Michael Kamen's writing. So it's 177 pages of Michael Kamen's writing. And
I love Michael Kamen. He was wonderful.
You met him?
Yeah, I knew him. Yeah.
Oh, tell me, what was he like? I don't know. I mean, it's, I don't read music. So sometimes you can, I guess it's the same, the Beatles connection to things where, I touch their orange or stuff. I've never been that guy. I've never asked anybody for a signature in my life. But when you're looking through the sheet music, there's like coffee stains and stuff. And what I see is just so much work. I mean, I can't believe you wrote all this.
And brain power and inspiration.
Amazing, right? Exactly. Especially with like the eraser marks. What did you change? How come you changed that note to this note? And what would it have sounded like if you didn't?
Yeah, what was Michael like, mate?
Michael was a very, he was unassuming. He was just a lovely, just a nice, pure soul. And he just loved doing music. He just loved doing all that. And he was part of the New York Rock and Roll Ensemble, and that's where he came from. And he was just always around doing. The last time I had seen him, it was at the 2000. What's it? Is it 2002 Olympics in Park
Utah?
City?
Yes, the Winter Olympics.
Yeah. Right. So I was there, and he was there, and he was doing something with, I guess, the people to sing. And, I was actually in the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Amazing.
Oh, cool.
It is an amazing
My
place.
God. It's just amazing to see. And he was writing out music, and he was doing all sorts of things. But it was not long after that was when he got very ill. But I'm just saying, He was just amazing. It was good to see. I saw him on and off in New York a lot, during those early days in the, early 70s and, late 60s, early 70s, around. But what a love.
I think of people like him and John and Paul and, there's not countless others, but there are some, Billy Joel, Beethoven.
Well, even my ex-husband,
Tony Visconti, sure.
Right. I have a lot of his notes.
They're like tuning forks, and they tune into the universe, and they're sort of they're like human satellite dishes, the way I look at it. And they just have to be in the right place at the right time, and there's a spark of inspiration. There's a white feather that falls, or there's a strike of lightning, or there's a raindrop, or there's something, and boom, that channel gets opened up and it comes in. Not to take anything away from their genius, they did.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I'm sure you do, Ruth. You know that Tony actually did all the orchestral arrangements for Band on the Run.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
He did that in 48 hours.
Amazing.
Paul came to him, and at the time, Tony was married to Mary Hopkin, and so he goes, I understand you could do orchestral arrangements, and so Tony says, yeah, I can. At that point, he had done a lot of things from Bolton, T-Rex and all that stuff, and to Bowie, and he goes, well, I've got something I got, a project for you. Yeah. And he said, okay. So he said, here. So he gives him a cassette back in the day. Sure. And he goes, I need orchestra. I'm just giving you all the places I need the orchestral arrangements. And he's listening to this. So there are chunks of the music that's missing, obviously, because he's only giving him the places where he wants the music. Yeah. So he goes, I didn't even know if what I was creating would come in right and go out right. And it was just one of those. So he says, when do you need it? He goes,
Wednesday.
Yeah, like yesterday type of thing. And he goes, oh my God. He goes, I booked a studio. It's in 2 days. So he had only 48 hours to do the whole album.
No pressure.
So of course, Tony actually conducted the whole thing and on the spot. That's where you were saying, why did they erase it? Because it doesn't sound right as it's going.
Yeah. I just want to know the different things.
Yeah. But because he didn't have the full song, he couldn't, he had to do it on the spot. So it was
fill in the blanks. Yeah.
Well, as I've understood it, trying to piece the pieces together. So Kamen was working in New York while they were recording in London. And I guess he was sending the stuff forward to them. I don't know. But I found out because of the museum thing, I had to do another insurance deal on it. So I had to look through it all. And I have all of Bob Ezrin's sheet music in there.
Oh,
I love Bob. He was
so great. Do I. Bob is great. He used to be in the studio. Who was he working with at the time? Ezrin was funny. He would, come in.
I knew him through David Cassidy. David Cassidy introduced me to Bob Ezrin. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember who he was working with in the studios in New York. And he one day came in, he goes, John, can I borrow your limo? Well, of course, why? He goes, I want to go out for a drink or for a meal. And he was taking Julia, oh God, it's an English actress, Julie.
Child.
Oh no, Juliet.
No, not Juliet, it was Julie.
Julie Harris?
I don't know my TV stuff.
Was it Julie Christie or somebody like that?
Julie Christie, Julie Harris? Wow.
No, not Harris. It might be Julie Christie. So I was like, oh my God, it's just weird.
Yeah, David Cassidy introduced me to Bob Ezrin years and years ago. I guess he was doing something with him. And then David's wife at the time, Sue Schifrin, was a songwriter, and she knew Bob from way back when. You know what? The music business world is at a certain level. Yeah. It's a small, it's sort of.
It all goes back to Ozzy.
It's Well, Ozzy, I used to work for Ozzy Osbourne.
I know you did.
I was the receptionist at Jet Records for Sharon's father, Don Arden.
Yes, Don.
Oh.
And I was answering one of those old, one ringy dingy, two ringy dingy actual phones, with wires that went into the wall. For those of you who are too young to know that phones used to be hardwired things. And we had line 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know, 10 lines or something. And I used to get calls I'd get Ozzy stoned or drunk or angry out of his gourd on line 1.
It was
wanting to speak, all of the above. But he was the sweetest bloke, is the sweetest bloke. Ozzy's a real gentleman. I mean, I'm the receptionist and he would hold the door open for me to go to the bathroom or pull your chair out in a restaurant. He was raised right. And then on line 2, it'd be Graham Russell from Air Supply, oh, hello. And then Tony Iommi would walk in to get petty cash to get, and I would be like, what is my life? I've got, the Antichrist sitting in reception. I've got All Out of Love on line 2 and then the Bat Eater on line 1. What the hell am I doing here for minimum wage? But it was a fun job, I tell you.
So you did not work, you worked for Sharon later, or you did not work for Sharon ever?
Oh, no, but Sharon and Don were actually part and parcel of Jet Records. Sharon was a manager and she shared offices with Jet. We were on Sunset above La Dome, actually the famous La Dome restaurant. And then they closed that office and moved up above Sunset Plaza. Don and his then girlfriend, later wife Meredith, bought a big house and they built kind of a ranch house next to it. And that's where our offices were. And that was where I was on the day that Ozzy bit the head off the dove at CBS Records. And he did it twice. He came home and did it for the benefit of the office staff and spit it in my bin. It was lovely. And I immediately picked up line 1 and called the doctor for a tetanus shot.
Well, third time's the charm. I'll give him a ring and we'll see if we can get him out.
No, Ozzy's a gentleman. He's an absolute sweetheart.
I did some shows with them, and I like both Sharon and Ozzy. So they were cool. And Jack was a little dude cruising around on his scooter thing. He would cruise around the backstage. He was such a nice kid. It was good.
Jack and Kelly weren't even born when I was around, when I started with that whole.
I was going to say, they weren't born when I knew them either. So
no, it was an odd roster though. The Jet Records had Tony Iommi, Black Sabbath, Ozzy, and Air Supply. Okay.
I like to know. I haven't seen Graham in a while. I wonder how he's doing.
He and Russell are doing great. They're touring out here. They're doing all like packing the canyon clubs and stuff. They're quite the songwriters.
I know, because I helped give them one of the songs when I was doing publishing. One of the, I think it was Too Many People. What was it? Something Many People in the World. I was working for United Artists. And
Two Less Lonely People in the World.
Two Less Lonely, right. With the Kenny Hirsch
like my air supply. Did you ever work with Jim Steinman?
No. Didn't.
I did not. No, I did not.
Just passed. It's unfortunate. He wrote some great stuff.
Yeah, sure did.
Bat out of hell. There you go. Talk about bats. We could.
There we go. We're back on the bats. So just a couple fill in the blank things. So you're working for Alan Klein at ABKCO Records, and then you went with a friend to Apple, like on a lunch break.
Oh, here's what it is. Okay. Now, this is how it worked. I went on a lunch break because I was looking for a job, and Alan Klein had just acquired Apple Records, and my girlfriend saw Apple Records, and I said, "You got to be kidding me! In this building?" So I decided to go up, and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to go ask for a job." What could they tell me? If they said no, I'm no worse off than where I am at the moment, right?
So where were you working though at the time?
I wasn't. I quit school. I quit college. I said, "I'm out of here. I don't like college."
What were you studying?
I was doing what was I studying? Retail marketing, actually.
Oh yeah, music's way cooler.
Yeah. So,
no offense, Ruth. No offense.
Right. So I had no idea, and I hated doing. I spent a year. I went to psychology. I went the whole thing, business law. That was actually interesting. Business law and psychology were my favorite. Everything else, calculus, and I said, "Do I really need calculus?" So
you're just like you're a young person trying to figure out what you want to do.
Right. So by the second year, I'm going, I really don't like being. So as I go to the head of the line, as we're supposed to be signing in, I look at the woman and I said, "How do I get out of here?" And she looked at me with this weird look on her face. And I said, she goes, "What?" I said, "I don't want to be in school anymore. Just tell me, how do I get out of here?"
Go in the music industry. They're very uneducated.
So I go to the bursars, and I was afraid to tell my mother. So, that I just quit school. So she actually took it well. She goes, "You got a mouth, you can speak English, use it." So, and she's told me that. I said, okay. So in those days, they have those agencies where they would send you somewhere for a job. And of course, I had no skills whatsoever, not even typing, nothing, because I took academic courses. So they said, "What could you?" I said, "Well, I can answer phones. I could be a receptionist." And they sent me to a Japanese place, a Japanese bicycle place, and it happened to be in that building. And I knew after I left the interview that I wouldn't get the job, because Japanese and Chinese just don't really mix back then. So I came and I went upstairs, and I asked the woman. I said, "Do you have any openings?" She goes, "No." And I said, "Oh," and I'm like this in the lobby, in the foyer, and I'm like this, and she's looking at me, and she goes, "Can I help you with something else?" I said, "Well, do the Beatles ever come through here?" And she said, no. And I said, okay. And just at that moment, and this is something that you said, Ruth, is at the right time, wherever the angels had put me, just at that moment, both doors, all of a sudden people were just coming out of the into the foyer, going to the elevator. And I'm like, what just happened? Everybody running out. And the woman behind the desk, which I later found out was relieving somebody else for a few minutes, she happened to just yell out saying, "Listen, this girl's looking for a job. Is there any openings?" And this guy turned around and said, "Come back after lunch." And I said, okay. And and I'm like, oh my God, had no idea. So I came back. I waited for about almost an hour and a half, was 2 hours, because I wasn't sure what the lunch hour was. And I came back, and they kept saying, "Do you know how to do this?" I said, "Yes." "Do you know how to do that?" "Yes."
Sure.
Yeah, sure. And
I can do it in Chinese.
I'm from New York.
Yeah. But the whole thing was that what I did do was, he goes, "Well, then you could start next week." I was thrilled. And from that moment, though, I taught myself every single thing. I wanted to learn everything. I was just like a sponge because I said, I'm not going to let anybody down. I'm just going to, I learned telex. I hated telex.
Yeah,
because
me
you make a
too.
mistake, you got to start from the beginning.
Punch the wrong hole. It says something completely different on the other end.
I know.
So then how did you find yourself with John and Yoko? Did you initially work on the phones and stuff? And then?
I worked in the royalties department. And, but there was such a turnover of people, then they would say, we need somebody on the phones. Could you go out there and help that girl out or whoever it was? And I said, sure. And what it was is because Alan Klein's office was just starting with Apple, they was just getting together. But he also at that time managed the Rolling Stones.
That's right.
Cool.
So all that was happening because it was coming out.
Yeah, just that.
Cut out, Ruth.
Right.
Sorry.
So he had
Just that, just them.
The Rolling Stones, and then you have these guys over here. So he actually at that point had John, George, and Ringo as managing them, and Apple Publishing. So that meant all the acts that was on Apple Publishing, which is Badfinger,
Jackie Lomax.
Right, all of them. So that it's that whole lot. Then you have the Rolling Stones. Now, the best part, because I ended up in music publishing, which is my favorite. I couldn't have asked for a better spot to be in. He had all the ABKCO Cameo Parkway music, all those records, which was, I grew up in the 60s, Dee Dee Sharp and, Question Mark and the Mysterians. So all that publishing. Then we had the CAGS music catalog, which is all Sam Cooke.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did not realize.
Then we all had all the, then we had all the Rolling Stones immediate record and all that stuff going on. So I learned from the best, not knowing, because I was always interested, but looking at this catalog was like amazing. So Apple, Rolling Stones, Sam Cooke, Cameo Parkway. That's my training from all the songs. And I was always interested in who wrote the songs, what, all the people that were involved. So that's where I ended up. And so that's how it started. And so John and Yoko would call up if one time I needed to be Alan's secretary. They said, Alan needs somebody over at his desk. I said, oh, I was working on one end, so I would go. I was like the, what do they call it? They
go Friday.
Yeah, they go out Friday to go to everybody's desk till they find somebody. So I remember John calling up and he goes, hello, want to speak to Alan? Distinct voice, you know who it is. You don't have to ask me, go, who's this? I said, okay. And it was one of those days, and I remember saying, Mr. Klein, John and Yoko are on the line. And he goes, tell him I'm not here.
Oh, crap. to which I would have said, he says he's not here.
Yeah, right.
Well, he knew because I said, Alan's not here. And he goes,
yeah, right.
Sorry. And that's what he would say, he goes, he's avoiding us. That's what I would hear. And they go.
So you think that they took you to work with them as assistant, I guess would be, as their assistant?
Well, yeah, well, the whole thing is that until they arrived, the first Beatle that ever came into that office was months later. I started a lot of people don't know this, but when I started working there, shortly after started working, the rumors of Paul is dead started happening.
Oh, God, that was awful.
Yeah. Well, guess who they called and guess who ended up speaking to the person, like trying to get through? Me. I was the actual person they ended up with speaking, like the radio station.
Wow.
And I'm going, because nobody wanted to talk to them. They say, you deal with it.
Yeah.
And you're 20 years old, basically, or 22, I think.
Me? At that time, I was only 19.
19, and you're the one in charge of the PR.
Because the person that was in charge of it, nobody wanted to deal with it. They said, you deal with it. I'm sitting there going, what? What am I supposed to say? But they asked me a question and they said, well, did you hear? I said, we had heard no rumors of that. And at the time it's true. We said, we don't know anything about that. And of course, obviously it just blew up from there. So that's my training. So you're asking. So as
you did go to college after all.
I did the music. Exactly. So the first Beatle was Ringo. Then George Harrison came into town later, and Badfinger and Jackie Lomax. John and Yoko came in towards the end of 70, where they were coming in to make 2 films, Up Your Legs Forever and Fly. And they needed people to work with them. And all of a sudden at my desk, I got this call and said, "You need to work with them." I was happy to get out of the office, and that was it. And I could wear my jeans.
And the rest is history, right?
Yeah.
So
that was
did you like working on the films rather than the music stuff, or?
It was different. I could only say it's different. It's apples and oranges at that point. Because where I was very, as much as it was music, it was more clerical work and understanding it. Whereas this was a little more creative and watching the process of getting flies in the dead of winter, or getting people.
I just picture you sitting there one day going like, "This is bullshit. I want to listen to Sam Cooke again."
Yeah,
I did not sign up for this.
That would be me. Yeah.
We need you to run naked through the streets of New York. It's for a movie.
Yeah, I know. And it was Up Your Legs Forever. And we're going, anybody want to show their toes to their thighs? And somebody says, "Is John Lennon really up there?" I say, "Yeah." And they go, "Okay." And they come up and, they sign up, because we were trying to get 365 pairs of legs, and it was just like, oh my God, so it was quite interesting at that point in time to do all these different things, and catching flies, like I said, in the den of winter.
Where was TikTok? Where was TikTok when you needed it, right?
Exactly. It would have been a fun time, I'm telling you.
Well, it's exciting though, especially when you're young. You go experience all these different avenues. Maybe you would have loved film, so it's nice to switch things up because you're still young. You can keep switching. You can keep going back and forth.
Right, and that was the first time, and I was saying, "Oh, I wanted to be in the business, but I didn't realize I was going to be doing all of this stuff." And I did get, this is where you get your credits and you get to work on something that nobody else is going to be doing,
Sure.
So, and that was really what it was all about. And it was just quite interesting at that moment in time. It really was.
And what about you, Ruth? So I know you were a performer, you were a singer and you're a dancer. And what made you want to pursue the arts as well? Was your father, if you don't mind me asking, so how did your father pass away?
So my father was some soldiers, as my mother likes to say. My father was a guy called Frank Clark from North Wales. My mother's marriage, Angie's first marriage to her husband, Eddie Williams, was on the rocks. She was told that she was going to die in childbirth of kidney disease. And she and her husband, who were separating, he said, "Well, I know it's not my baby," because Frank Clark was my father. "I'm having an affair with our next door neighbor called Ruth. If you die, why don't you call the baby Ruth, and I will bring her up as my own, even though she's not mine. And all will know, the Irish Catholic proper family will never know the difference, because she'll be called Ruth and her mother will be Ruth." Well, she didn't die in childbirth, and he got killed in a car crash. So there she is with a child named after the woman that was having an affair with her now dead husband. Wow. And my real father came into the hospital to see me about 2 days after I was born, and announced to Angie, to my mom, "Well, it's been nice, but I've just accepted an army post in Australia. See ya." So he buggers off. So now there she is. Her husband has died. Her house was tied to his job. So after 2 weeks after his funeral, the Concrete Utilities Company of Liverpool came around with an eviction notice and evicted her and me. So we went to live with my grandmother, and we went after 30 different flats in Liverpool, and they said no children. And finally, a wonderful woman called Battling Bessie, she was called, MP, Member of Parliament Bessie Braddock, wrote a letter to the Liverpool City Council and said, "This is discrimination. This is bullshit. This woman is a working woman. She's a secretary. She's got a 2-year-old kid. She needs a flat. Give her the keys to a flat." So we had a flat. Fast forward another couple of years. My mum used to play, Angie used to, she still is Great Britain's youngest ever certified piano teacher. She got her teaching certificate 5 days before her 13th birthday. So at 12, she's actually in the other room writing her 4th book. She's 91. And so she goes out and plays piano in pubs.
Is it about TikTok?
Yeah, no, she's actually joining TikTok for something else I'll tell you about off
Okay.
the air.
All right.
Yes, we'll come back and hopefully do another one of these about that.
Sure.
She's launching some NFTs as well in the same platform that May is. And so she gets into, she's playing piano all over the place, meets a lovely couple called Mike and Bet Robbins. Fast forward another couple of years to 1964, my mom's sister, Auntie Joan, who had the same exact, when May says, John's voice is recognizable on the phone, so is Julian's. My mom and her sister had the same exact voice pattern. This guy, Mike, comes into a shop in Liverpool and says, I'm late for a funeral. I need directions, blah, blah, blah. Where? And my Auntie Joan answers him and he says, wait, are you Angela? And she said, no, but I have a sister called Angela. And he said, does she have a little daughter called Ruth? And she said, yes. He said, oh my God. I have is she married? Is she a widow? What's going on? And he did the matchmaking between my mom and Jim McCartney. That was August. They met in August. They met 5 more times and they got married in the November of 1964. And January of 65, January, February was their honeymoon in the Bahamas on the set of Help. So that's how I got thrown into the whole Beatle world. It's crazy.
It is crazy. So, and he was older than your mom
crazy.
was. So, as you're an adult, is it odd to you that I listened to an interview she did, and she had said that she could move in to help him with the house, or she could marry him, but she didn't want to just move in to help with the house and not be married, and so that was the route she took. But he was 30 years her senior, is it?
28 years older. Like Paul is now 28 years older than Nancy. It's funny how history repeats itself. So, it was definitely at the beginning, it was an arranged kind of marriage, if you will. He needed help around the house and she didn't want me to go to the local little tiny village school of, in Liverpool, they say they're living over the brush. She's shameless hussy she's living with, and they're not even married. I mean, it was the 60s. This is, 60 years ago, for God's sake. Yeah. And so she said, well, if it was just me, I'd be a living housekeeper, but I've got a little girl and she's going to have to deal with all the gossip in school, plus the Beatle thing, plus the scrutiny of the press hanging outside and the groupies and the fans and what have you. And so they got married and they tied the knot, and it really became, he would only live 12 and a half years. He died when I was 16. He died in my arms. God bless. But it really, truly became a love story. It was a really sort of interesting Romeo and Juliet. They were thrown together out of loneliness and necessity, and they learned to kind of deal with each other's differences and foibles. But they were just such a really fabulous couple. They were just.
You're 16. I mean, that's you're ready to go see the world at 16. You think you know everything in the world. I think there is to know.
Yeah.
So
you're 10 feet tall and bulletproof, right?
Right. You're tough as nails. So your father passes away. I assume you had a pretty good relationship with him.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
And then, so what did you do? Did you decide you wanted to go to school, or did you went down the road of music, or? Both?
No. So I went. I went to Tunisia and learned to ride a camel because I thought that would suit me well. And I had been accepted in my aunt, my mum's sister, my late Aunt May, was a ballerina. My mother's other sister, Joan, was a championship British ballroom dancer, and Ange was a piano player. So I had the sort of, from the non-McCartney side, I had, the artistic talent. And I was, I was okay at piano and I was okay at guitar. And so I decided to go into choreography. So at 16, I started my own business called Ruth McCartney and Talent. And I auditioned tons and tons, sort of like So You Think You Can Dance. I auditioned lots of dancers, and I put together, similar to the Blue Man Group, I put together different troupes called Talent all over the place. And our first client was Gimbals, which is now Macy's. And I choreographed when I was I was 16, just runway fashion shows for Gimbals, where we did sort of the glam rock and the dancing and the glittery makeup and the big hair and business suits and,
so Gimbals, I called my mom because I heard the Gimbals one and another, and she's like, that wasn't in London. There's no.
No, New York. It was Macy's, yeah.
Gimbals, I don't know that.
And Macy's bought them out eventually, and all the Gimbal stores became Macy's, like Bloomingdale's became Dillard's became Bloomingdale's or whatever. Anyway, so they were my first client when I was 16, and we had troops traveling all over the place doing avant-garde fashion shows. Because in those days, fashion models were like, they were supposed to be like coat hangers and glide and not get in the way of the clothes. And I thought, well, screw that. I'm just going to disrupt that whole idea. And we're going to play Slade and the Glitter Band and Mud and Susie Quattro, and we're just going to rock out in business clothes. And it, you know, it hit the papers because it was just outrageously, you know, offensive.
Was there
and so I just literally went into business. I went into business for myself at 16, and I never looked back. I'm 61, turn that around, and I'm still self-employed.
Well, you work your butt off. There's a lot you always got going on. You keep the hamster in your head moving quickly. I think there's a lot going on. It's good.
It drinks too much coffee, that hamster.
So was there music that you guys liked that either Paul or John were like, ugh, you know, not again? How many times are you going to listen to that record?
Well, in our house, it was "I Think I Love You" by David Cassidy and the Partridge Family.
He's like, no more.
Yeah, he's like, does he know he loves you yet?
No, John was different. I mean, you know, he loved music.
He loved David Cassidy. He played it all the time too.
After we met him, it was like another story. But yeah, he would listen to everybody's music. I mean, I think we heard a lot of Bowie's for like a lot of times. And it was like, we got to move on, you know. But at our house, he was always listening. He was always open to new music. So he would get his inspiration, you know.
That's good.
And Paul played a lot of different people's music in our house, obviously. And he grew up with, you know, 20s jazz, razzmatazz, big band. My dad had Jim Mack's band. When he was 18 or 19, he wrote a song, an instrumental called "Walking in the Park with Eloise," which then Paul later recorded in the 70s in Nashville with Chet Atkins and Floyd Kramer under a pseudonym, the Country Hams. And it was featured in the only film to feature both Paul and Jim McCartney music is an animated, an adult animated graphical novel called Ethel and Ernest. And it is the most charming, beautiful film. And we went to the premiere here in LA a couple of years ago. And my dad's music is playing in the movie as Ethel and Ernest cartoon characters are walking into a date in a movie theater. And they had a poster drawn Jim Mack's band, which was really, really cute. So
cute. So I should know, and I kind of know, but can you explain to me what an NFT is? Because I just
I'm gonna give this one to Ruth. Come on, Ruth. Well, I know what it stands for these days. I finally got.
I know what it stands for, and I think
but I don't know.
One thing I'm on the fence and not understanding. So I want to buy one of May's photographs. Okay. And I'm going to do it because you have NFTs. So my question is, do I have a part of the copyright of that photograph because of the, okay. So what I'm buying is what?
A digital print. So it's a digital collectible. They're like baseball cards. If baseball cards were digital and lived on your phone or your iPad.
May was a huge baseball card collector.
Okay. Yes, right. So basically, forget the idea of NFT. It just stands for non-fungible, i.e. non-forgeable, non-duplicatable token. The token is actually a digital collectible. So I don't know if you're a gamer, if you play games or whatever, but when you buy, let's say in Fortnite, you buy power-ups or you buy a sword or you buy something, you know, when you're playing a game and you run out of energy, you buy energy. Those are basically non-fungible tokens. They just live in game world, which they call the metaverse, right? So NFTs, they're collectibles, but instead of having to have a wall or a frame to knock a nail in and hang them, they simply live on your phone. That's the only difference is that.
So if I was, it's like me buying a print and it's signed, May paying 1 of 100 or 2 of 100 or whatever you make the size of. Okay.
She owns the copyright. You own the right to hang that version on your wall.
Then we have to talk maybe after, because I have a lot of Bob Marley photos that have never been released.
Wow.
And
that's nice. Yeah.
That could be something cool. I got them a couple of years ago. You knew Bob Marley, or you worked with Bob Marley, right, May?
I worked at Island Records, and I worked with his manager at the time. And Bob, Island was putting out all the Bob Marley stuff. And I was meeting also, this is where I started to learn more about all the reggae stuff and Third World. And I mean, I was learning so many new groups and their names, and I was finding it all interesting. At the same time as that was going on, Brian Eno was coming in with that whole New York scene. So I was getting it from both ends. And then in between all that, I got Robert Palmer that would come in. And he would, it was like, I had three different, it was all the different genres right in front of me. It was, again, it was a learning curve for me. I was very lucky because also in the office was this guy, Gary Kerfers, and he says, he works with, obviously with Chris Blackwell, and he got an office space, and he just started managing groups, Talking Heads. So they used to sit outside in the desk, in the sofa. So it was like, it's just a whole strange world. I mean.
And they were all nice enough to you?
Oh, absolutely. They were all nice. They knew nothing about me, my background with John or anything. It was just as
That's one of the threads that we've talked about a lot. People in music are not dickheads. They're usually all right.
Some of them, I have to say, some of them are. I agree with you, Rob.
Yeah, that was the last time I said on one of these. They went off on how awful Michael Bolton is, and I'm like, what are we talking about? And he goes, we talked about it before we came on, and we both agreed we could talk bad about Michael Bolton. And I was like, okay.
It's funny. I saw Michael years ago, and it was in London. And his manager at the time, Lewis Levin, was a close friend, and so we were trying to reach Lewis on the line. But that was the last time I saw. I saw him, Michael Bolton, and he was at a dinner. Just happened to drop in at a dinner table that Julian was giving. Was giving this dinner. So it's kind of funny to see him on the show, that the celebrity dating game. It's
funny, right?
It is funny because he's sitting there.
I didn't even know there was a show.
Oh yeah, he's sitting there, and he doesn't really smile. I don't know what he's, it's like.
Maybe he's Scottish by birth. Maybe he's Dúr.
Maybe.
I was just sort of,
I only met him once. Speaking of Julian, I only met Michael Bolton once at the Sunset Marquee at some small event in that little that
little room down there,
Cavata restaurant, whatever it's called, with the koi fish in the middle of the Sunset Marquee, and he was pleasant enough. I mean, but he was probably on parade for some PR thing. But I understand when celebrities can be dickish because they just get asked the same questions over and over again.
Oh, it's rough, yeah.
If you get a celebrity, a film star, especially at the end of a day when they've been sitting 48 hours in a junket chair with all the rotating.
See that one with Tom Cruise where he got a little pissy and then they blew it out of proportion. The poor guy's been answering the same dumb questions for 4 days straight.
Yeah, right.
You don't see any of those. You see it when he gets hit hard.
Well, and also those big stakes, they have so many handlers and so many people. They've got lawyers hovering by. They've got marketing people from the studio. They've got their manager, their publicist, the publicist's assistant, their hair and makeup people going, oh, you have one hair out of place. They feel like performing monkeys in a zoo. So I get it, when people get cranky after stuff, I get it. But for the most part, the music industry is one big family. But boy, there are some dickheads out there, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Who shall remain nameless?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do know that.
Did you want to be a photographer at one point, or were you taking these photos just because, you're hanging out and that's what people do?
No, photography was always, when I was growing up, it was I just loved the medium. So I used to go out with my, with having a small, from all the different Polaroids to the those little Yashica cameras, because I just love taking photographs. And then I got into it more and more, and I started taking them. And then when I was with John, he started to see some of my photos, and he would go, oh, let me see some of those photos. Because I was just doing it for me, for the pleasure.
Sure.
And he started to like my eye, what I was taking, what I saw of him. So he goes, well, this isn't so, he was very critical of his own photos. So you go, this isn't so bad. He goes,
Oh, that's a big compliment from an English person.
yeah, exactly. And I was like,
And a Scouser to boot.
That's big.
right. And he said, so in a sense, even though he wouldn't have yelled or anything, but he would have said, don't take any more. I just don't like the way I look. He just said, go carry on. So he let me do whatever, So the pictures I have of him, sleeping, hanging with the cats, or doing whatever
Eating
it is.
lunch.
Yeah, eating lunch or eating soup, blowing his nose. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that he allowed me to, he liked the way I saw him in his natural, without any fanfare. And
well, those are often the best pictures. It's just the things there's some setups that are nothing against Annie Leibovitz or
yeah.
Peter,
the picture of John, he loved it so much. He actually asked me if he could use it for his the 45 of the Imagine single that came out a couple of years behind, because the Imagine album came out in 71 or so, and the single for Imagine in England didn't come out till 75, on my birthday to be exact.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah, and it was my photograph. He says, I like the way I look in this picture. And it was because he also wore his Aaron sweater. He loved that sweater, so he's wearing it. So he does,
Once, so I had on here John May, and John still was. He worked for Elton John for decades. And so he told me the story of you going to I think it's you who went to the Madison Square Garden show with him. And the way he told it, so what happened, he said, is that he was so nervous about performing. He was vomiting before the show. And do you remember the day of that, before the show and everything? Was it? Because he did, what he said in his story was that he didn't want to do it, but he had made a deal. And so,
wait a minute, who's that now? Who are you?
Okay, so John Mayan is my friend, and John had been with Elton John forever. So he was saying that the setup was that if Elton John did this song with John Lennon, that if the song went to #1, John Lennon would then perform live with him, which he had not done since performing with the Beatles. And when he performed live, he was so nervous about doing so that he was vomiting behind the stage. He was just but he had made the deal. And so he went out and he did a song, or I don't know how many songs he did with him. Or
we did 3 songs.
3 songs. And so you were there for it all. Was he that nervous, or was it just before the incident, or was it an all day thing, or?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't. It was Thanksgiving Day, actually, right? So back in 1974, we had gone to Thanksgiving dinner over at, I think it was Seymour Stein's house. And then we, everybody, Elton, the boys, everybody, we were there, and then we all went home. And John is like pacing, he's getting nervous and getting sick. And people don't realize he was still nervous about that. And we're backstage. When we finally get to the backstage, he's pacing, smoking a cigarette. He was like, "Oh my God, what am I doing?" And besides, this was not his band, but they learned every little bit. And we went up to what was it, Boston, to see how the show would go. How Elton would sing and what the songs and how everybody sounded. And we went up there and we watched the show at the Boston Gardens, which was I think it was like a few days or a week before the garden show. And then we only had one rehearsal and they chose the song. So we sang Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which was the song that was put on Elton's album, that we went out to Caribou to, so that John could sing background on that one. And then afterwards, we did Whatever Gets You Through the Night, which was John's single that became #1. And then they did, what was it? When was it, 17? Just 17, right. Mm-hmm. And John chose that. He goes, I never sang it. It was a Paul song. He goes, and so they did that song at the end. So those were the 3 songs they chose. And even, in fact, at the end of the set, he'd said, "Okay, I'm done now." Basically, he said, I'm paraphrasing. He goes, I'm basically done now. I could go home and be sick. So, he was just getting over it,
So afterwards,
He was
everything
nervous.
kind of,
Absolutely.
like Barbara Streisand, so famous for having terrible stage fright, and other people, and you just don't think about it. I don't remember working for any bands that I saw have real horrible stage fright. They just seem to go out and do it like it was regular. So it's interesting that you think that John Lennon would be
There's some people
freaking out all day.
Yeah.
So that's cool. All right, last question, possibly, unless you guys want to come up with something else, you're welcome to do so. But so I was going to put together a podcast, and my friend's daughter, who's in 5th grade, she said, you need to ask everybody when they first felt famous. So bear in mind, we're talking about a little girl, but to make it a broader idea, when was the first time you felt like you were on the right path, or maybe you did feel famous, or something that just felt right, something that clicked? It was a moment of happiness for you.
Wow. I have to say, the minute I got the job at ABKCO, I knew, because there was so much hustle, but I did it. I managed, to be in a place where, even though there wasn't a lot of there were no Beatles, there were no nothing, but you just felt the energy. And then, of course, in 69, even though it wasn't the Beatles, we got the Rolling Stones. So it was like, there was so much going on every day, even though it was boring to a lot of people, because it was really an office that we were just doing clerical work, but the artists started to come in. And what was it now? This was 69 when I started. In 1970, in the beginning of 70, in February, I'll never forget it. The first Beatle to grace the place was Ringo.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, it's Ringo, so I was, he was my favorite Beatle. Oops, growing up. Oops. Yeah, I know.
He's a lovable guy.
I know. And it was not the right thing for me to say when John asked me that question. He was my favorite Beatle. That was not the good thing to say.
But you're truthful.
I was truthful. After I said it, I went like this. I said, oh, and Ringo was like, I went, oh, why did I say that? And I could see myself going, oh, no. And he goes, and I looked at him, and I could see him staring at me. I said, no, but you don't understand. You were my favorite singer. You were, all the songs were all his. I said,
you look best in glasses.
Yeah, and I said the blue eyes and the whole thing. And I said, and I was 13. What do you expect? I said, and you were married. So let me not get there. But it was one of those things that you do. And he was still a little upset that I didn't say him first.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, Ringo was always the wrong answer in our house when I was asked that question too.
Everybody loves Ringo.
Oh, it's true.
And he had a birthday recently. Can you believe he's 81? Wow.
He looks great, though.
He is great. He is great. Yeah. So I think the answer to I'm going to take a crack at the first one. When did you first feel famous? Mm-hmm. It was in 1988. I was 28 years old, and I stepped off the plane in Moscow, Russia, and there were literally hundreds and hundreds, if not 1,000 people in the arrival lounge waiting to greet me, stepping off the plane to come and do a tour of what was then the Soviet Union. I had great promotion and great PR and a team in Russia that I had accidentally met when I was living in Munich. I shot a video. I sent it to my handlers at the Kremlin, who sent it to their one and only TV station, Gosteleradio. They had 13 time zones and one TV station and 280 million people. And they put me on air 7 or 8 times a day for 6 weeks. So instant fame, just add television.
Yeah.
And I went there to do a bunch of tour dates, and there was thousands of screaming fans everywhere I went. And I'm like, oh, this is what it feels like. Cool.
Yeah.
That's neat. One of the things, so the Me Too movement, it was huge. And I was speaking to somebody over the weekend who told me he's a talent agent. He's a big talent agent. And he said that the Me Too movement really has changed the entire film industry. Mm-hmm. And I know in the music industry that it's a lot different from when I toured too. I'm told there's a lot of women now, where it wasn't that way when I worked. There wasn't a lot of female roadies.
There was definitely not when I was there.
Yeah. So from the time that you were in beginnings in the music industry, Did you find that it was really hard for women? I mean, you're tough as nails, I can tell, both of you. But was it troubling sometimes to be a woman around all these guys?
It wasn't so much, yes and no, because it wasn't so much the rock and rollers I met, it wasn't them. They were very nice to me, but it was all the people behind the scenes.
The suits.
And I saw the casting couch. I saw a lot of that. I remember having a conversation with somebody. They said, this guy said, because I came in at a point where it was the old guard and the new guard was just coming in. It's like you're having the older, the older producers, like the Morris Levy's of the world. Then you're talking about the newer, the Russ Titleman. So, but the older guards, it was just that you started seeing them, and they said, one of them said to me, everybody has a price. And I got shocked. And I said, no, I don't, there's no price. They said, oh, there'll be a price. And I said, no, there won't. And I kept true to my word on that one, but it was like, he was going to try and break me. And I was like, oh,
That's
hold
freaky.
on. Yeah. So in later years, I saw him and he never brought that up. He was always nice to me after that. I stayed true to that whole thing, but I did see a lot of that nonsense going on. And it was hard for women. And you know what? The problem is a lot of people don't understand. Back then, which I do understand about, you cross one of them, if they're very powerful, you weren't going to work again.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You weren't going to work again. So when people said, why didn't you say something? It was going to fall on deaf ears. So I saw a lot of that, and it was very sad to see. And thank God that it's a new timing. It's new that you can say something now. No one's going to say, oh, we don't believe you. Although there's some places that still do, but now you have a little bit more support where you didn't have any before, none whatsoever.
Right. I was 23 living in Hollywood, legs for days, and these were a lot less close to the floor than they are now. And I had gravity gets all of us in the end, And
I think you look spectacular.
Oh, thank you, darling. I'll meet you in the closet later.
We'll have some McCarthy tea.
We'll have
McCartney tea.
Exactly. And I had a meeting. I was trying to get a record deal, and I had a meeting set with a certain head of a label who shall remain nameless. Short English guy, curly hair, horn-rimmed glasses. You know who you are. And it got moved from 11 o'clock on a Tuesday to 2 o'clock on a Wednesday to 5 o'clock on a Friday night. So I go to the building, and I go, and I'm all dressed up, and I have my little cassette box and everything. And all I hear is, good night, good night, good night. The doors slamming. So now I'm alone in this huge building on Sunset and Coimbra with this person. And who was also British. He said, oh, darling, everybody's gone home. Shall we have a glass of champagne to toast the weekend? And I said, sure, absolutely. But if you're trying to get me drunk and do anything weird, I am from Liverpool, and it starts with liver. So I hope you have a case of champagne if you're going to try that out, right?
Yeah.
So we knocked down a bottle. We knocked down a bottle, and I have to go, to the little girl's room and powder my nose. And I come back, and this guy is lying on the Persian rug in his office, wearing nothing but brown shoes, navy blue socks, and said horn-rimmed glasses. And he was, shall we just say, very busy.
Sounds sexy as all hell, doesn't it, man?
Sexy as super hell. And so I look down, and I step over him, and I grab my keys and my briefcase and he said, where are you going? Where are you going? I said, well, a couple of things before I go, darling. The brown shoes, the blue socks, not a good look. Fashion faux pas. And wow, is that that's just like a penis, only smaller. Oh. And so I left the building, went straight to Le Dome, told everyone who would listen and his name and one person in here that was on his label. And of course, I never got a record deal up or down Sunset Strip, but I wasn't going to be forced into. And every time I ran into this guy at the Grammys or, the RIAA awards or BMI dinners or whatever, he would just turn around and scuttle and run the other way because he knew I just told everyone in town. I didn't care. This was me too, and it was 1983. I wasn't going to keep my flap shut. I don't care.
Yeah.
So, it was difficult because I knew there was a price to pay, and I had to go all the way to Germany to get a record deal with BMG because I was blackballed in town for being lippy and not, cooperative, shall we say. But no, I thought the best part of it, never mind the penis joke, I thought the best part was criticizing his shoes and socks color combination.
See, that's what happens.
Yeah.
You see, that's what happens when you try to get fresh with the fashion police.
Yeah.
So is mom still making tea?
She is. She's brewing Mrs. McCartney's tea. She has strawberry fields and Maharishi mopped up maple and Maharishi peach and Penny Lane peppermint, and it's all good stuff. And 10% of it goes to the Linda McCartney Breast Cancer Research Fund at our charity in Liverpool.
I thought we should end on a good note. I love my tea. I love tea.
Yes, I actually made a peach tea, and it's iced in here. So
Very nice.
I brew my Mrs. McCartney's and then throw some ice in it. I might have to throw some vodka in it. It's past time.
Absolutely.
It's that damn time. Indeed. Well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been really nice to talk to both of you.
They can visit my site also for my jewelry because I make feng shui jewelry as well.
That's right.
I read about that. I was going to ask, so would you think about doing a book that wasn't about music, May? Because you've written 3 books?
It's actually really only, technically it's 3 books, but it's really 2 books. Yeah, I would do something like that. I mean, there's a lot of different things that I have, that
you're eclectic. Like I did see your jewelry. It's neat. So
yeah, my feng shui jewelry, because my mother used to talk about, you go somewhere and she go, don't do that. It's not good feng shui. And people used to laugh at me and go, what is that? And then of course people now would say,
it's very popular.
It's popular now. I said, yeah, but I was doing it when I was a child. My mother would say, don't do that. It's not good. And that's okay, Mom. So.
Well, and then you have hot sauce because you're a hot chick.
Oh yeah, I've got my hot sauce, and I got.
I have a hot sauce company.
Do you really?
Yeah, I got to revamp my website.
So left out.
I don't like hot sauce though. I don't like spicy stuff. So that was always the big joke. But I was a young guy. I'm going out, and we're going to all the parties, the Hollywood parties, and I just was so sick of talking about film or music stuff. So I would just change the subject to hot sauce all the time, and I just pitched my hot sauce website. And so hollywoodsauce.com. And then it was fun. So everybody, but still, all the friends, you still have the hot sauce site? And I'm like, yes, I do. So I don't really make any money out of it, but it's great fun. I like all the stupid names and all of that. I enjoy it.
You guys should swap sauce.
Yeah. We'll have to do it. There's a few guys who have their hot sauces in the music industry. So
wild.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole lot of things, that goes on. It's because we've done it, it's not that we've done it all, but it's experimenting. I love, that's why I was going into photography. That's why I'm going into jewelry. The only reason that whole jewelry thing came out of that feng shui is because I wanted to go look for something. And when I went to look for it, there was nothing out there that was suitable. That was just that didn't look like trash. So I said, I guess I'm going to have to make something.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and now you're in the digital collectible business, and if any of our lovely viewers today want to check it all out, it is at maypanggallery.com.
Hey, thanks for watching Party Like a Rockstar. If you're not already subscribed to the Facebook or YouTube channels, do it. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The handle is Party of Stars. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.